It's like literally like a Hallmark movie condensed into a song and the usual arc for a love story. Hey, it's Megan. Welcome back to On Writing. If you're new here, I'm a professional writer and writing coach. Today we're looking at another one of Taylor Swift's love songs, and this one is from her Speak Now album. So I'm excited to see what we can learn from it.
You were in college working part-time, waiting tables, left a small town, never looked back. I was a flight risk with a fear of falling, wondering why we bother with love if it never lasts.
Okay, come on now. Come on now. We talk about this all the time when we look at Taylor Swift songs together, and it's that she is really great at pulling out just the right details to give us the story. So we get a bit more detail than usual in this one. You were in college, working part-time, waiting tables. So she doesn't leave a lot of room for us to infer. She really just tells us everything we need to know there. Left a small town, never looked back. Again, giving us a lot of backstory about this person. And then she switches to I was a flight risk. If you're a flight risk, it means that you're in trouble for something and you're at risk of trying to leave the country and avoid your punishment. That's where that kind of comes from. But I was a flight risk in this context means I tend to leave when things get hard. And she has a fear of falling. So again, similarly to flight risk, there's a fear of falling in love. I like the idea of a flight risk, flights being up high, and then a fear of falling. That's kind of fun play on words there. Good juxtaposition of character development in these opening lines. This person that she's singing to seems very driven and motivated, working part-time. He left a small town, never looked back. Whereas the narrator is more like maybe timid, maybe reserved, flight risk, fear of falling. So they're both, however, coming together in this line where it says, wondering why we bother with love if it never lasts. So they're both landing on that same conclusion, but it seems like they get to it in different ways or they deal with it in different ways. So
I say, can you believe it? As we're lying on the couch, the moment I can see it.
she switches the story entirely, but we're able to keep up because she's just telling us exactly what we need to know in just enough detail. They're lying on the couch together and she says, can you believe it? And then it gets a little bit more reflective and she's like, the moment, I can see it now. I can see it now, the moment. So we're like, what moment is she talking about? I think she's about to tell us.
You remember we were sitting there by the water. You put your arm around me for the first time. You be a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter. You are the best thing that's ever been mine.
Love it. I always loved the line, made a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter. I just always thought that was such a great line. I still think it's a great line. So she says, okay, the moment, I can see it now. Here's the moment. Do you remember we were sitting there by the water? You put your arm around me for the first time. So that's kind of that moment where it's like, can you believe it? Now here we are. We've fallen in love. You made a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter. So there's a lot going on there. A rebel, obviously someone who goes against what they're maybe being asked to do or told to do or what they've learned to do. A careless man's careful daughter. So in those 4 words, we're getting her entire backstory, which I think is amazing. So her father was careless, and that made her be really careful. She's full of care. He was careless. I just love that play on words there. But she's careful with her heart because it's been hurt before. Despite that, she's now becoming a rebel and letting this guy in. And she says, you're the best thing that's ever been mine. So it's very sweet. It seems to be working out for her so far.
Fast forward and we're taking on the world together. And there's a drawer of my things at your place. You learn my secrets and you figure out why I'm guarded. You say we'll never make our parents' mistakes.
We know that time has passed here because she says flash forward. They're taking on the world together. So that directly contrasts the opening picture of you were in college doing this, I was this, we're in different places, but kind of coming to the same conclusion. Now we're taking on the world together. There's a drawer of my things at your place, like we are sharing this life together. It says, you learn my secrets, you figure out why I'm guarded, you say we'll never make my parents' mistakes. So again, that connects back to you made a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter, flight risk with a fear of falling, you find out why I'm guarded. So we get more of the narrator's backstory than the person she's singing to's backstory, but it's nice that it ties all together and is very consistent.
But we got bills to pay. We got nothing figured out. When it was hard to take, yes,
Okay, so that's really sweet. She says, you say we'll never make my parents' mistakes, but we got bills to pay. We got nothing figured out. So she's basically saying, like, we could end up making my parents' mistakes because we have these things going on that make it hard. But she says, when it was hard to take, this is what I thought about. And so she goes back to that moment again. Do you remember we were sitting by the water? You put your arm around me for the first time. I also really love that it's not like you grabbed me and kissed me passionately for the first time. It's like you put your arm around me. There's something very comforting, very sweet about that. They're both looking out at the water and sharing a moment together, and he like pulls her close. So I love that that's the gesture that she goes back to. It's very like safe, you know, like he's got you.
You remember all the city lights on the water. You saw me start to believe for the first time.
So then she changes the line a little bit. It's, do you remember we were sitting there by the water? Now it's, do you remember all the city lights on the water? You saw me start to believe for the first time. So I always read this as like they're taking on the world together in a different city now, and they're sitting by the water again. But at this point, she's starting to believe that love maybe is real.
Everything was slipping right out of our hands. I ran out crying and you followed me out into the street.
It's the middle of the night, they're fighting, everything was slipping out of their hands. So this is like her worst nightmare because she's guarded, she has secrets, and she's a flight risk. And here we see that taking place when she runs out crying.
Sail for the goodbye, 'cause it's all I've ever known. And you took me by surprise.
So again, her background is coming into play here, and we can empathize with her more as a character because she's showed us her background in the previous verses. Now she ran out crying, she braced herself for the goodbye, that's all she's ever known. It hits with more weight because we've heard her say things like careless man's careful daughter, flight risk with a fear of falling, he had to find out all her secrets and know why she's guarded. So we know that this is a big deal for her, and it's understandable then why she would react in this way. Then there's a great approximate rhyme with braced myself for the goodbye, then you took me by surprise, love that, and said, I'll never leave you alone.
I remember how we felt sitting by the water, and every time I look at you, it's like the first time I fell in love with a careless man's careful daughter. She is the best thing that's ever been mine.
Love this. So Taylor Swift does this in a few of her songs where she bookends her song with the same verse but just switches it up a little bit. So this person's saying basically the same thing that she's been saying throughout the song, but they just put their own twist on it. There's a lot of fear in this relationship for her, but the reassurance of knowing that your partner thinks about it the same way you do. So the thing that keeps you rooted in the relationship and rooting for it is the same thing that they think back to as well. So I think that's just like so sweet.
Gonna make it now. I can see it.
And then we get our happy ending where it's, do you believe it? I can see it now. We're gonna make it now. It's gonna be okay. Kind of a simplistic story when you think about it. Like they're together, it's been great, they have a fight, and then it's like, oh, we got through that one fight, so we're gonna make it. It's like, well, okay, maybe. It's like literally like a Hallmark movie condensed into a song and the usual arc for a love story. That's really cute. Super fun. All right, that was mine from Speak Now. If you liked this video, let me know below and consider subscribing. It really does help my channel. I will see you next time. Happy writing.